Welcome to the Credit Show on KDON. We're here every Saturday. Our new time, by the way, 8 to 9 Saturday morning here on KDON. And if you're someone that is a podcast person, you want to find another way to listen to the show, whatever it is, you want to pick up on something maybe that we talked about in another show prior to this one, the iTunes podcast app. I've got over 50 shows in there. Not a lot compared to all the shows we've done. We've got a small number, but there's a bunch in there. Check that out. iTunes Store. Just punch in Credit Restoration in Nevada. Our show's here every weekend on KDON. We air a bunch of different times through the weekend again, but 8 to 9 is the time you can hear us live. I'm going to tell you how to reach us in just a couple minutes. I want to tell you a couple of the important pieces of the puzzle for us. And the first one is that anytime you ask us to look at your credit, to get our opinion on what's happening, to think about, aloud what the best plan is for you to get things back on track, it's always free. We don't charge you anything until you hire us. And a lot of times, folks don't need us, right? There are things you can do on your own to get your credit back on track. We turn, I think about 40% of the business that comes to us, I turn away because there are things you can do on your own. Just listen, before COVID, we started doing these net meetings, not Zoom, but similar to that, where you can jump on your computer and then I send you a link and you can actually get into my computer and look at my screen. We'll review your report together and we'll get you an analysis of your credit quickly and easily. That process is a fairly simple one, but it happens all in real time. So if you want to reach us, the website is a very easy place to go to do that, and that is CR, like Credit Restoration, crnevada.com. And there you'll find a link to get an appointment with us, schedule an appointment. You'll find a link to get your credit report through Identity IQ. That's what we use. We've got proprietary software, by the way, which allows us to get into Identity IQ and take all of that information out, the good and the bad, and get you an analysis on your credit report. And that allows us to get that done very quickly for you. The computer does all the work, and then we just look at it and handle that analysis for you. So you can fill out the information there just to, first name, last name, email address. You want to set up an appointment or get that link, get ready for us, that's fine. The other way to reach us is on the phone. And we are text-friendly, 702-778-2000. 702-778-2000. Just text the word credit. We're going to ask you a few things, right? I'm going to ask you your first and last name so we know who we're talking to. And then your email address. Right? I want to send you an email with a link to get your credit report. Simple as that. Got a bunch of things on the agenda for today. The first one is, and it's something I see a lot, but I do get calls frequently about the Experian Boost. That's a free product from them. I had this discussion the other night while I was sitting smoking a cigar. It's my vice, the cigar. And I was sitting at my spot, and someone said, why do they do that? Right? Why are they offering that product? A business guy said, why are they doing that for free? I don't understand it. Like, if you already belong to Experian, you don't even have to belong to Experian. You can just go ahead and do it. Right? Why are they doing it for free? Nothing's ever free. I remember my grandfather telling me when I was like 10 years old, Harry, there's no such thing as a free lunch. Someone always wants something. What is that something? What could Experian possibly want from you to give you this boost in your credit score at no cost? Anyone? It's kind of rhetorical. You're obviously not going to be able to talk back to me. Or maybe you are. I don't know. I'm just not going to hear it. Here's what happens with the Experian Boost. In order to do that, in order to get your credit boosted through Experian, they need access to these accounts that you're trying to add to your credit report. They need your cell phone bill. They need your rent record of your rent payment. They need record of your utility payments. All those things. Certainly those three are the big ones. And there's only one way for them to get that. They get it when you link your bank account to the Experian website. And to me, that's a big red flag. One of the reasons I wouldn't do that is because you are talking about a company in Experian, really any of the big three, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. These credit reporting agencies have more information on us than anyone else in the country. They can, if you are part of a breach in one of these, I mean, think about this. There was an Equifax data breach a handful of years ago where, I think it was 2018, where 2/3 of the country with credit reports were affected. So this is a company, by the way, that has more information on you than anyone in the country. They've got your mother's maiden name, your father's middle name, your full social, your addresses, your phone numbers, all this stuff. So if their information gets hit, anyone can turn around and open accounts with what's given, what's sold on the black market. By the way, and there was never any talk about this. I was, if you go back and listen to shows from 2018 and 19, I was suggesting that China or Russia was behind that hack. Because that information, those credit reports, were never available on the black market. There had to be some, and I am not a conspiracy guy, but there had to be something else funny. There had to be a bad actor in that, like Russia or China. So when you do this Experian boost, sorry, back to the point. I've had a lot of coffee today. Back to this boost, you're essentially allowing Experian to gather additional information from you in the way of how much money you keep in your bank account. You're also providing for them how much money you make, because if you get direct deposit, I would imagine you do, most people do, they see what your payroll deposit is. You don't get to say, only look at these three accounts, your rent, your utilities, your insurance, whatever they are, whatever I mentioned. They look at your entire bank statement each month, and they can go back. Once they have that information, they can go back. Now, I'm not saying they use that information for malevolent purposes, but I will tell you that the value in data is huge right now. That's where all the money is. These IT companies, it's all in the data. And when they have that data on you, you become more valuable to them. So when this friend of mine said, what's the rub? Why do they do this and provide this at no cost? To me, it's simple. It's just the data. That's all. I would caution you against doing it. A lot of people do it. And I tell the same story to people week in and week out. I immediately, when I see it on a credit report, it's identifiable. And I ask people if they know how Experian gets that information. Maybe yes, maybe no. Less than half of the people understand what they're doing in terms of giving information to Experian. By the way, it makes Experian more valuable than the other three credit reporting agencies from a data perspective, because now they have this additional information. They got a leg up on Equifax and TransUnion. So just think about that before you do that. There are plenty of other ways to boost your credit score. Now, I get this is quick and this is easy. But the other part of this, a friend of mine was a chief credit officer for a credit union. And he was bitching about this thing when it came out. He said, it screws up our approvals for car loans and other things. It screws up the underwriting. Because when you apply for something, and listen, this is a credit officer from a banking institution who wants people to get approved. But when you apply for credit for a car or a home or a credit card or whatever you're applying for credit for, you generally don't release everything completely. You don't release your utility information. That all adds to your debt load. And this boost figures into that and screws up the matrix for underwriting in a lot of cases. He was really upset by it. Nothing he could do. It's Experian. Biggest of the bunch. And they use Jones Day as their attorney, the biggest law firm in the world. You're not going to fight them and win on something like that. Doesn't matter to them. What matters to them is data. And with this program, they have it. So that's the info on that Experian boost. I get if you want to do it, and if it doesn't matter to you that they have your data, then go ahead and do it. And maybe you'll see a difference in terms of how you see your credit score. In general, it's always a boost. It's not something, by the way, that doesn't happen. It generally is always a boost. You'll see a difference. If you look at your credit report today and then sign up for that boost and look at it in 3 days or whenever the report recycles, depending upon the program you have with Experian, you'll see a boost. It works. But is it worth providing all that information? I am not sure that it is. That's your decision to make. If you want to talk through any of that, or if you've got questions about anything you hear, or you just need our help, you want to get some opinion, you want to get a set of eyes on your credit report, I would implore you to pick up the phone and call. Easy to do that. Call us or text us, 702-778-2000. 702-778-2000. When you text us, by the way, just text us the word credit. We'll ask you your first and last name, get your email address. I'll send you an email right away. The system does that for me. It'll tell you about our process a little bit, and there'll be a link in there to get a credit report through Identity IQ. There'll be a link to set an appointment with me on my calendar. That's public information. You just click on a button. You get a bunch of times for this coming week for when I'm available to talk to you. Simple and easy process for you to go through. 702-778-2000 is that phone number. And the website, if you want to do it that way, is CR, like credit restoration, crnevada.com. This is the Credit Show on KDON. We're back on the Credit Show on KDON every Saturday morning from 8 to 9. Dozen years doing this show. Happy to be here. Happy to be doing the show on a weekly basis. Happy to provide you with information on credit. Talk about a variety of different things on the show. All credit related. Debt collector issues and things you can do on your own to boost your credit score, things you can do to fix your credit report, a bunch of different things are covered. A lot of different things are covered on the show. Today is no different. The website, by the way, if you want to check our site out, see some videos, get some information, some additional information about our company, is CR, like credit restoration, crnevada.com. Easy to find us. Phone number 702-778-2000. 702-778-2000. Going to ask you 3 questions, right? Name, first and last name, email address. That's it. Get you an email out, get a credit report to look at. A lot of times when people get sued, and we're seeing a rise in credit card lawsuits now. There are a handful of companies, Credit One Bank, Wells Fargo, Capital One, that are companies that I refer to as the usual suspects in terms of companies that will sue you over a minimal amount of money. Credit One and Capital One will often sue over $1,000 if you owe them $1,000. It's part of their model, by the way. It's interesting to me. You can have a consumer get sued on a debt and pay it off, or just have one that charges off, pay it off, and then apply for credit again and get credit right away. You can't do that with Bank of America or Wells or other companies. But Capital One, it's part of their model. They assume a certain percentage of their clients, their customers, are going to default. And they sue and they win and they get default judgments, and they are able to levy bank accounts and garnish paychecks, and they play ball. Wells Fargo does the same thing. Ford Motor Credit, a company that does the same thing. If you have a repossession and a deficiency balance is the money that's owed after they've sold the car at auction. You have repossession fees and late fees and all kinds of other fees that are added on. You have a balance. These are fees that they can add on. A lot of times people will ask about the additional fees in addition to what was owed. Well, the car wasn't worth that, or the car was worth more, or whatever it is. It's contractually they're able to do that. And in the end, what matters is how the contract reads. When you talk to the attorneys, that's all they care about. Are these fees contractually, called out? Are they called out in the contract? That's improper grammar there, but is it legal for them to charge those fees? When people get sued on credit card debts, and honestly for other things as well, a lot of times people bury their head in the sand. They don't want to go to court. They think I'm screwed. I'm going to lose. I'm just not going to show up. I'm going to bury my head. I always say, don't do that. If you go and fight, and even just go and ask some questions, and I'll give you a couple of questions to ask in a minute. But as a consumer, if you go and defend yourself in that scenario, you're far better off than not going at all. These law firms that sue lots and lots of people at a time. And in general, the lawyers that are defending these or representing these plaintiffs, the folks that are suing you, are not prepared for a consumer to show up at a hearing and ask questions about the lawsuit. In particular, give you a legal term here, but account level data comes right out of the Fair Credit Reporting Act. Account level data. That's the first thing you want to say if you go to court and defend yourself. Your Honor, I'm looking to get a better understanding of this debt that's owed. I would like account level data. History, interest charges, a breakout of things, statements, et cetera, et cetera. Immediately, things are going to be put on hold because, in general, these lawyers are not prepared to deal with that. What they are prepared to do if you show up generally is make a deal. And you can play let's make a deal with them when they show up. Now, you may be asked, and this happens often, and the reason I'm having this conversation with you today in this segment is I want to talk about something called a confession of judgment. And we're hearing more and more about these lately because these lawsuits have ramped up. So a confession of judgment is essentially a legal device. And it's, it can be a clause inside a contract. It can be something separate from the agreement. In cases of credit cards, it always is. But what you do, or what you're doing in that case, is you go to court and you say, essentially, I'm guilty, but I'm going to enter into this agreement. Let's say for the purposes of discussion, to illustrate a point, you're going to sign a confession of judgment that you owe $1,200. And you can pay $100 a month for the next 12 months. What happens is you start paying that $100 a month after you sign the confession of judgment. If you default on that, what that confession of judgment allows the creditor to do, if you don't pay, is get a judgment against you without advance notice, without a hearing. They generally require you to waive your right to assert any sort of defense. You sign the confession of judgment, you're admitting guilt. And by the way, they can go and make entry of that judgment, meaning they can levy your accounts, garnish your wages. They can go and collect it in any way that they can. There are plenty of states that look at these confessions of judgment as being controversial. I happen to think, I'm not a lawyer, but they're often challenged because they facilitate predatory lending practices, or they violate your due process because you're immediately guilty if you break the agreement. I think an agreement's an agreement. They were going to sue you and probably win to begin with. You made a deal. They made a deal. But you're saying to them, essentially, when you sign it, I agree to this deal and I'm going to make payments. And if you default on that, you're saying I'm guilty already, right? I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I'm a consumer guy at the end of the day. There are places, I think Indiana is a state where they prohibit the use of a confession of judgment in an agreement. Sometimes they will be written into contracts. I don't believe that's ever the case with a credit card. And in Maryland, their Court of Appeals in 2020, they held that a state law prohibits the use of a confession of judgment in consumer transactions. 2019, New York amended their law to limit the use of them against out-of-state debtors, meaning you got a payday loan in New York online and you live in Nevada. They can't get a confession of judgment against you in an attempt to make sure that you pay your bill. They've got to go through it in other ways. So that's the confession of judgment. But we're seeing that and seeing those more and more with these lawsuits ramping up. When we look at a credit report, I've had several this week that I've looked at. I must look at, a dozen to 20 credit reports a week. And I had a handful of folks that had debts from credit cards with Capital One, with Wells Fargo. We had one of the reasons I was thinking about this is the Ford motor credit repossession with a balance of, 10 or 12 grand owing. And, when I see those things pop up, when I see those creditors, Credit One Bank, Wells, Capital One, Ford, those few, they're not the only ones that sue. There are plenty of others that sue. But I immediately say to somebody that needs our help, have you been sued yet on this debt? And if you haven't, someone on one credit report had 2 credit cards with Capital One totaling over 10 grand. My first question was, have they sued you yet? And he said, what do you mean yet? I said, it's a matter of time. If you haven't been sued, it's just a matter of time before they come knocking. And you have to respond to that. And they will fight you to the death. As Joe Rogan would say, they're straight up assassins. It's true. It's part of their plan, and they will do what they need to do to get their money back. And by the way, when they sue you, a lot of people say, well, that the judgment expires after a certain period of time. I think California, it's every 10 years they have to be renewed, I believe. Nevada, it's every 6 years they must be renewed. These credit card companies hire law firms that have little triggers in their calendars, and they renew these judgments. These debts can follow you around for a long time, and they do. So before you are forced into that, my message here is before you're forced into signing one of those, try to make a deal. If you're getting sued, go to court. Represent yourself. Ask a few questions. I want account level data. Your Honor, I'd like to make a deal. The judge will look at the plaintiff's lawyer and say, what can we do to get this case out of my courtroom, to get this away from the bench? I don't know what the terminology is, but you know what I'm saying. Can you guys deal with this separately without using me? In other words, you get what I'm saying. If you want to reach us, if you've got questions about any of this, if someone's suing you or you're worried about getting sued and what to do, just pick up the phone. Ask me for the help. I'm happy to do that for you at no cost to talk to you about it. You can go through the website and book an appointment with me. CR, like credit restoration, crnevada.com. Or you can pick up the phone, call us, or text us. If you text, just text the word credit. 702-778-2000. 702-778-2000. Get a look at your credit, get a look at your situation, get a better understanding of what's happening to you. Pretty simple process for us. This is The Credit Show. It's Kate on. Welcome back to The Credit Show on Kate on. Saturday mornings, 8 to 9 on KDWN. About a dozen years of doing this show each week. Love doing it. Love getting the opportunity to talk to you about credit. I am a credit nerd. I pride myself in that, right? In really going to school on credit. My name's Harry Jacobs. Our company is Credit Restoration in Nevada. And by the way, FICO certified. I've been through their program. I think I understand about as much as you can understand about credit, as certainly as anyone you'll run into. It's a fairly easy thing to understand how things work in terms of how credit scores are calculated, but it's perplexing sometimes to read these reports and really grasp it if you're someone that doesn't pay attention to it day in and day out. I suppose that looking at a dozen to 20 credit reports, some weeks more, for a dozen years, you end up seeing about everything there is to see. And that's my situation. It's our situation. There's nothing new. There is nothing on a credit report that I have yet to see. When people say, I got to tell you a story, you're not going to believe this. I say, try me. Go ahead and try me. It's a pretty simple process for us to review and analyze your credit. I'll tell you how to do that in just a minute. Give you our website, give you a phone number to reach us. We're on the iTunes store in the podcasts. If you would like to download a show that you've heard or you just like to listen to podcasts, you can go ahead and do that. Just punch in Credit Restoration of Nevada when you go in there. We're happy to help you. We've got folks in our office, by the way, standing by to talk to you. Our phone number is 702-778-2000. 702-778-2000. You may also text the word credit as well. And we can run through your credit report for you. Get you a link to Identity IQ and get the analysis done. It's quick and easy. If you've got questions, you need help, if something's going on, you just pick that phone up and say, help me. Help me. I need your help. I have a bunch of things. I'm sorry. A little pause in my brain for a moment. I want to talk in general about a simple way, really two simple ways to boost your credit score. Whenever I look at a credit report where someone says I need to boost my credit, I look at two things right away. I look at revolving debt that they have, credit card debt, and I look at how many inquiries someone has. And those two things will help often find the solution for the credit boost, or at least the culprit for why the score needs to be boosted. It's pretty easy. I want to talk about inquiries first. And I'll give you an example. I've used this in the past. We had someone that came to us, a lender came to us, and they can use a score simulator, meaning they can look at your credit report and say, well, if you do the following things, you can go here. So this person had a 703 credit score, needed a 720 for one rate, needed a 740 for another rate reduction, and a 750 for another rate reduction. And in this case, we removed successfully 15 inquiries for this client. He went 703 to 755 as his mid score. It saved him almost $400 a month, like $4,400 annually. And by the way, on a 30-year mortgage, that's over $130,000. Pretty crazy for a few $100 to get rid of some inquiries. Pretty simple. I shouldn't say simple because inquiries are difficult to fix and get rid of now in particular. The credit bureaus, by the way, it's such a pain in the ass. The credit bureaus want you, the consumer, to go back to the creditor where the inquiry shows up and say, please remove this for us. Never happens like that. It doesn't. That's an effort in futility, an exercise in futility, as they would say. An exercise in futility to do that. They never do it. But it's huge, the impact that inquiries can have. They can be anywhere from 3 to 8 points a pop, depending upon where your score is, depending upon how many you have. I saw someone this week that had 63 inquiries in the last 2 years on their credit. That person was applying for something often. A lot. Too much. There's no reason to do that. So way number one to boost your credit is to get rid of inquiries. That's option one. And option two is to pay down your credit card debt. 30% of your credit score is based on how you handle your revolving credit. There's all this stuff written online about what you should do. And, just leave $5 on your credit card every month. Everything will be fine. The rule of thumb is to be at 10% or below. You get a $1,000 credit card, don't keep more than $100 on it. And you may ask, well, how do I do that? There's an easy way to do it. There's an easy cheat, an easy workaround for that. What you need to do is find out what day of the month your credit card statement closes. Let's say it closes on the 10th. What you want to do is on the 9th or the 8th, pay your credit card down so that there's only a 10% balance, and then don't touch it for a day or two. So that way when the statement breaks, it always reports that you're at 10% of your available credit usage on that. Now, if you've got more than one credit card, you want to do that across the board. It's such a huge hit to your credit when you look at what revolving credit does. I've given the example of a friend of mine that had an Amex account. He would charge $40,000 a month on it. He paid it every month. He paid it religiously. But with him, 1 month, I said, listen, don't pay it until the day after the statement breaks. You're not going to pay any additional interest for that. Just wait a day. Let's let it report with $40,000 of debt on it. Basically, it's a charge card, so it's not at its max. They show you the highest usage. But with him, his credit score went from 810 to below 700 because he maxed out a credit card. By the way, it doesn't matter that whether you have $40,000 or $1,000. If you've got an 800 credit score and have one credit card with a $1,000 limit and you put the $1,000 on it, you're going to lose the same amount of points as someone with $40,000. The amount of available credit has no bearing on the algorithms that deal with scoring and the makeup of these scores in your credit report. So, I would tell you, if you're interested in boosting your credit score, think about those two things first. A lot of times people will call and say, listen, I've looked at my credit report and I have this and I have that. And, I know I have a lot of credit card debt. And, a lot of times people will come to the table, people that have listened to the show for a lot of years, that know what to look for. And they come in prepared, and I love that. But I also need to see it from my own eyes. It's like you calling a mechanic and saying, listen, I got a tie rod end that needs repairing. I've got I've got this problem or I've got that problem with my car. The mechanic's going to say, okay. But also that the mechanic's going to say, let me get it on my lift and look at it myself. Let me put my own eyes on it. Not that I don't trust you, but I want to make sure that if I'm touching this credit report, that I know precisely what's going on, what's right, what's wrong. That's all. Simple. I want to do the same thing. I always want to see a credit report. People will often say, well, I need your pricing and I need this, and how do you do this and how do you do that? Let me first look at your credit report. Let me be certain that I can help you, because if I can't help you, I'm going to tell you right away, listen, I can't help you. Or here are some things you can do on your own to help yourself. Always that's going to be the case. There are big credit repair agencies that are out there that you don't even have to talk to anyone. You can just sign up online. They don't analyze your credit. They don't look at your credit and say, you're not a candidate. We routinely help people that have been to those big companies. I'm not going to name any names. By the way, they're people that we wouldn't have taken on to begin with, because what they need is to get credit card debts that are delinquent settled or collections settled. You can't just write letters to the credit bureau and pray that things are going to come off. It doesn't work that way now. The bureaus have a mechanic in place. They get 4 billion pieces of information a month from 35,000 different furnishers of information, credit card companies, auto finance companies, mortgage companies, collection agencies, all that stuff. The letters, by the way, that you send aren't even opened by humans. They're opened and scanned, given a code. It's crazy. But you can't just write letters now and assume things are going to come off. It doesn't work that way. See this crap on TikTok. Here's how to do this. Here's how to get rid of this. Here's how to get rid of that. Meanwhile, these guys are sitting home smoking weed, eating flaming hot Cheetos and hitting the bong. Here's how you fix your credit. Meanwhile, he's filming this in his mom's basement. 30 years old. Give me a break. So if I can help you, I'll tell you that I can help you. Sorry, it was a long way around for that. If I can help you, I'll help you. If you can help yourself, I'll tell you that too. But it all starts with a review and an analysis of your credit. And we can't do that without you calling us and saying, I need help, or emailing us or scheduling an appointment and hearing my voice on the other end of the line saying, hey, thank you for calling. What can I help you with? What can I do to fix things for you? And that's what happens. I talk to every single person that calls us. If you stop listening to the show and go on our website or call us right now and set a call for me to get back to you, or us to call you back, it's me that calls you today or tomorrow or Monday or whenever you're hearing this show. That's me that calls you back. So go to the website, crnevada.com, CR like credit restoration, nevada.com, or pick up the phone and call us or text us. Text the word credit, 702-778-2000. 702-778-2000. This is The Credit Show on the iTunes podcast store under Credit Restoration in Nevada and on KDON.